علما ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك الذي أنقذ ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Fatima Zahra, the daughter of the Prophet, peace be upon them, is to have thus related an event. My father, the Prophet of Allah, came to my house one day and said to me, "Peace be on you, Fatima." I replied, "And upon you be peace." Then he said, "I feel weakness in my body." I said, "Allah protects you from weakness, father." He said, "Fatima, please bring the Yemeni cloak and cover me with it." So I brought the Yemeni cloak and covered him with it. Then I looked at him and saw that his face was shining like a full moon with its glory and splendor. After a while, my son Hassan came in and said, "Peace be on you, mother." I replied, "And upon you peace, O light of my eyes and the delight of my heart." He then said, "Mother, I smell a fragrance so sweet and so pure as that of my grandfather, the Prophet of Allah." I replied, "Yes, your grandfather is lying underneath the cloak." Hassan went near the cloak and said, "Peace be on you, my grandfather, the Prophet of Allah. May I enter the cloak with you?" He replied, "And upon you peace, my son and the master of my fountain. You are given the permission to enter." So Hassan entered the cloak with him. After a while, my son Hussein came in and said, "Peace be on you, mother." I replied, "And upon you peace, O light of my eyes and the delight of my heart." He then said, "Mother, I smell a sweet fragrance like that of my grandfather, the Prophet of Allah." I replied, "Yes, your grandfather and your brother are lying underneath the cloak." Hussein stepped towards the cloak and said, "Peace be on you, my grandfather, the chosen of Allah. May I enter the cloak with you?" He replied, "And upon you peace, my son and the interceder of my followers. You are given the permission to enter." So Hussein entered the cloak with them. After a while, Abu Hassan Ali bin Abi Talib came in and said, "Peace be on you, O daughter of the Prophet of Allah." I replied, "And upon you peace, O father of Hassan and the commander of the faithful." He then said, "Fatima, I smell a sweet fragrance like that of my brother, my cousin, the Prophet of Allah." I replied, "Yes, he is underneath the cloak with your two sons." So Ali went near the cloak and said, "Peace be on you, Prophet of Allah. May I enter the cloak with you?" He replied, "And upon you peace, my brother, my legatee, my successor, and my standard bearer. You are given the permission to enter." So Ali entered the cloak with them. Then I stepped forward and said, "Peace be on you, my father, O Prophet of Allah. May I enter the cloak with you?" He replied, "And upon you peace, my daughter, O part of myself. You are given the permission to enter." So I entered the cloak with them. Getting together underneath the cloak, my father, the Prophet of Allah, held the two ends of the cloak and raised his right hand towards the heavens and prayed, "O Allah, these are the people of my household, Ahlul Bayt. They are my confidants and my supporters. Their flesh is my flesh and their blood is my blood. Whoever hurts them hurts me too. Whoever displeases them displeased me too. I am at war with those at war with them. I am at peace with those at peace with them. I am the enemy of their enemies, and I am the friend of their friends. They are from me, and I am from them. O Allah, bestow your blessings, benevolence, forgiveness, and your pleasure upon me and upon them, and remove impurity from them, and keep them thoroughly pure." Then the Lord Almighty Allah said, "O my angels, O residents of my heavens, verily I have not created the erected sky, the stretched earth, the illuminated moon, the bright sun, the rotating planets, the flowing seas, and the sailing ships, but for the love of these five lying underneath the cloak. Jibril, the trusted angel, asked, "Who are under the cloak?" The Almighty answered, "They are the household of the Prophet and the assets of prophethood. They are Fatima, her father, her husband, and her 2 sons." Muhammad. Jibril said, "O Lord, may I fly to earth to be the 6th of them?" Allah replied, "Yes, you are given the permission." Jibril, the trusted, landed near them and said, "Peace be on you, O Prophet of Allah. The All-Highest conveys his peace on you and his greetings and says, By my honor and glory, O my angels, O residents of my heavens, verily I have not created the erected sky, the stretched earth, the illuminated moon, the bright sun, the rotating planets, the flowing seas, and the sailing ships, but for your sake and love. God has given me permission to enter the cloak with you. May I join you, O Prophet of Allah?" The Prophet replied, "And peace be on you, O trusted bearer of Allah's revelations. You are granted the permission." So Jibril entered the cloak with us and said to my father, "Allah sends his revelations to you. Verily Allah desires to remove blemish from you, O people of household, and purify you with a perfect purification." And then Ali said to my father, "O Prophet of Allah, tell me, what significance has Allah given for getting together underneath this cloak?" The Prophet replied, "By him who rightfully appointed me a prophet and chose me a messenger for the salvation of the mankind. Whenever and wherever an assembly of our followers and friends mention this event, Allah will bestow on them his blessings and mercy. Angels will encircle them, asking Allah the remission of their sins until the assembly disperse." So Ali said, "Verily by the Lord of Kaaba, we and our followers are the winners." Then my father replied, "By him who rightfully appointed me a prophet and chose me a messenger for the salvation of the mankind. Whenever and wherever an assembly of our followers and friends mention this event, there shall remain none grieved, but Allah will remove his grief. There shall remain none distressed, but Allah will dispel his distress. There shall remain none wish seeker, but Allah will grant his wish." Ali happily said, "Verily by the Lord of Kaaba, we and our followers are the winners and the blessed in this world and the next." Salawat.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much, Brother Zuhair, for that wonderful recitation. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now we'll kindly ask our dear brother Muhammad Ibrahim for salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Salawat. Where is your grave, Mother Zahra? Where are you sleeping? My heart is asking, oh Mother, my heart is asking, where is your grave, Mother Zahra? Where are you sleeping? My heart is asking, oh Mother, my heart is asking, oh Mother, I am Zainab, and for you I so much care. You left me and I'm in fear, and life can be so unfair. For your grave I am searching, on the ground my eyes will stare. For your grave I am searching, on the ground my eyes will stare. for your grave. My heart is searching. Where are you sleeping? My heart is asking, oh mother. My heart is asking, where is your grave, Mother Zahra? Where are you sleeping? My heart is asking, oh mother. My heart is asking. Tonight is the night you fell, with pain and sorrow I say. You left me to fight my grief, crying is the only way. Where are you, Mother Zahra? You left me and went away. Where are you, Mother Zahra? You left me and went away. With sadness my voice is shouting, where are you sleeping? My heart is asking, oh mother. My heart is asking, where is your grave, Mother Zahra? Where are you sleeping? My heart is asking, oh mother. My heart is asking. Salawat.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much, Brother Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And I kindly request Brother Misam Jafri for salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. बारी दिगर सलावत आज रुखसत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा आज रुखसत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा क्या कहूँ दिल में ख्याल आते हैं क्या क्या या अली हाँ मदीने वालों को था मेरा रोना ना ناگوار ہاں مدینے والوں کو تھا میرا رونا ناگوار آج سے ہوگا نئے لوگوں کو شکوہ یا علی دشمنوں کو تم نہ آنے دینا میری لاش پر دشمنوں کو تم نہ آنے دینا میری لاش پر پیدائے شب میں میری میت اٹھانا یا علی اور بعد میرے جانے کیا ہو حال بچوں کا میرے بعد میرے جانے کیا ہو حال بچوں کا میرے ان کو ایذا ہو تو ہوگی مجھ کو ایذا یا علی جانتے ہیں آپ یہ نازوں کا پالا ہے حسین جانتا ہے آپ یہ نازوں کا پالا ہے حسین وہ اگر دلاسا اس کو دینا یا علی تم کو زحمت ہوگی لیکن میری تسکین کے لیے تم کو زحمت ہوگی لیکن میری تسکین کے لیے میری تربت پہ میرے بچوں کو لانا یا علی رہ گئے اپنا کلیجہ تھام کے مولا سعید رہ گئے اپنا کلیجہ تھام کے مولا سعید بولی زہرا جب خدا حافظ تمہارا یا علی آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات
جزاک اللہ خیر جزاک brother Mr. Jafar صلو علی محمد و آل محمد Now we call our dear brother Abbas Hassan for Marcia. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوات بر محمد و آل محمد.
فرزندوں کو پھر فاطمہ زہرا نے بلایا، چھاتی سے لگایا کبھی سینے سے لگایا، بالائے جبی بوسے لیے اور یہ سنایا، لو پیاروں کے ہنگام
جدائی کب آیا،
لو پیاروں کے ہنگام
جدائی کب آیا،
اب تم سے جدا ہوتی بطول عذرا ہے، یہ
آخری زہرا نے تمہیں پیار کیا ہے،
یہ آخری زہرا نے تمہیں
پیار کیا ہے،
حیدر سے کہا ان کو نہ پہنچے کوئی ایذا، یہ ہیں میرے پیارے کبھی ان کو نہ گھرکنا، اور آپ سے ایک عرض یہ کرتی ہے زہرا، پڑھیو میرے لاشے
پہ نماز ہے میرے مولا،
پڑھیو میرے لاشے پہ نماز ہے
میرے مولا،
ختم نائن دونوں کو تڑپائیو صاحب، بچوں کو میرے
قبر پہ تم لائیو صاحب،
بچوں کو میری خبر پہ تم
لائیو صاحب،
نازک ہے مزاج ان کا یہ معلوم ہے مولا، ہر بات میں بے ساختہ رو دیتا ہے چھوٹا، ہے خوف الٹ جائے نہ سینے میں کلیجا، تم اس کو میرے
لاش پہ بھی رونے نہ دینا،
تم اس کو میرے
لاش پہ بھی رونے نہ دینا،
سب خود ملے مرتبہ قرآن کا سمجھ کر، گھر کے نہ کوئی
اب اسے بن ماں کا سمجھ کر،
گھر کے نہ کوئی اب اسے بن
ماں کا سمجھ کر،
یہ کہہ کے کیا بند در حجرۂ اطہر، سب خرد و کلانان کے رونے لگے باہر، آواز سنی کلمہ طیب کی برابر، پھر کچھ نہ صدا آئی،
کہا سب نے یہ رو کر،
پھر کچھ نہ صدا آئی،
کہا سب نے یہ رو کر،
رحلت ہوئی بس آج رسول عربی کی، لوٹ گئی دنیا سے
نشانی بھی نبی کی،
لوٹ گئی دنیا سے
نشانی بھی نبی کی،
القصہ وہ دن ماتم زہرا میں جو گزرا، شب آئی کھلے گیسوں سے دینے کو پرسا، حیدر نے کیا غسل کا سامان مہیا، معصومہ
کے ہاتھ میں جو زخم لگا تھا،
معصومہ کے ہاتھ میں جو
زخم لگا تھا،
وہ دستے بطولہ خمیدہ نظر آیا، یہ دیکھتے ہی منہ کو
علی کے جگر آیا،
یہ دیکھتے ہی منہ کو
علی کے جگر آیا،
نہلا کے جو کفنان لگے میت زہرا، زینب نے کہا ہاتھوں سے سر پیٹ کر اپنا، اماں کا میرے ہاتھ تو سیدھا کرو بابا، وہ رو کے
پکارے یہ خمیدہ ہی رہے گا،
وہ رو کے پکارے
یہ خمیدہ ہی رہے گا،
تابوت میں پھر میتیں जहरा को लिटा कर
सबसे कहा लो बीबियों रुखसत करो आकर,
सबसे कहा लो बीबियों
रुखसत करो आकर।
साहिब मेरे बच्चों को छुड़ाओ ना खुदारा, खातिर से मेरी देर करो और गवारा, होएगा मेरी रूह पर एहसान तुम्हारा।
बच्चों से ज्यादा मुझे कोई नहीं प्यारा,
बच्चों से ज्यादा मुझे
कोई नहीं प्यारा।
मासूमों से दम भर में बिछड़ जाएगी जहरा, फिर काय कोई सीने से लिपटाएगी, फिर काय कोई सीने से लिपटाएगी जहरा।
Jazakallah khair. Brother Abbas Hassan, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, before we call our respected Sayyid to address the majlis, just a couple quick announcements. So tomorrow and Wednesday will be same as today, 7 p.m. Salat al-Isha, followed by the program. And most importantly, alhamdulillah, we are looking for contributions for the expenditures of the majalis of Ayam Fatimiyya Salamu Alaiha. So we kindly request anyone who's interested in contributing any amount, there's no amount that's too small, for the majalis of Sayyidah Fatima Salamu Alaiha. And there's no greater honor than being able to be a part of the majalis of Bibi Fatima Salamu Alaiha, whether it's financially or any part. We pray, inshallah, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of the efforts of the reciters and all who have gathered here to remember the masibat of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So if anyone is interested in contributing any amount, please see myself, Brother Amjad Sabar, Dr. Ghulam Abbas, or any member of the board of directors. And inshallah, we will be happy to give more information. But without further ado, we kindly request if everyone can please move up as much to the front as possible, as we'll be expecting more people to come. We kindly request our dear respected Sayyid Sulaiman Hassan to please address the member. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
سورة الفاتحة.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين. أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Over the last several nights we have been discussing the lessons we learn from the life, the sacrifice, and the values of Ahlul Bayt in general, and the beloved daughter of the Prophet Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salatu was-salam in particular. And one of the very important lessons that we need to remind ourselves of is that to properly understand Ahlul Bayt, one has to understand the purpose and the values for which Allah sent His Prophet. Otherwise, you will not be able to understand the decisions, the speech, and the life of any of the members of the family of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mentioned that sometimes being too close to an event for many people is an obstacle to understanding that event or to understanding the personalities involved in that event. Because you see their sleep and waking, and sometimes they're getting sick and eating and their daily life activities, and you think that you know them. When in reality, for some people, they live basically as animals live in this world, and their food and their drink and their sleep and their enjoyment, that is the entire depth of their soul. But then for those who are pious, the actual life of their soul is not limited to the life of their body. And in fact, their material life is the most imperfect and shallow and incomplete representation of their actual existence. And for such people, when you see their physical life, if you think that is the sum total of their life, then your closeness will be an obstacle to your understanding. Even though you think that you were there and others were not there. Now, if you are close, you know the details, you have the knowledge of the sermons of the Prophet, but you understand that what the Prophet is speaking is wahyun yuha, and not the words of the Prophet. And so whatever language the Prophet may speak, whatever words he may use, they cannot be a perfect representation of what he is trying to say, not because of a limitation on the part of the Prophet, but because of a limitation of language itself and the understanding of the audience. And therefore you will always realize that it is not through poetry or literature or dictionaries or analysis that you are going to get the deepest understanding of the words of the Prophet or the revelation that is conveyed by the Prophet in the verses of the Quran, but rather it is through piety and it is through humility and it is through sincerity that you will understand. And the Quran tells us, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. I am not allowed to touch the text of the Quran if I do not have tahara, meaning if I do not have wudu. But that is just a symbol and a reminder that if I am not permitted to touch the text without cleansing my body, it should remind me that I cannot understand the text without purity and cleanliness of my soul. So it isn't your knowledge of Arabic, and it isn't the beauty of the recitation of your Quran, your tilawah, and your tajweed that is going to bring you close to the heart of the Quran. That might be a prerequisite or a requirement to know the language, to study those material sciences. But you are not touching the reality of the Quran if you do not purify yourself. لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. Only those who are purified. The believers and the faithful in the Quran, they are seeking to purify themselves. But those who have truly touched the Quran and are one with the Quran are those who have been purified by Allah, and they are only Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhi salatu wa salam. Because it is about them that Allah says, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. So the proof of Hadithul Manzilah, if it needed proof, although it is a mutawatir and a definitive consecutively narrated hadith, and it is found in at least one of the two Sahihain in Sahih Muslim, although in a limited form, the complete text which the Prophet spoke is not found in Sahih Muslim. But the essence of Hadith al-Thaqalain is found there and in Sunan al-Tirmidhi and in many other sources, so it is transmitted without any doubt. Mutawatir meaning in every generation of the companions and the followers after the companions and in subsequent generations before writing was widespread, and then when paper entered into the Muslim world and books were written, in every generation from the time of the Prophet until the present time, it is a consecutively narrated report that cannot be doubted. Whether you accept one school of thought and their books of hadith or another, it is found in every authentic ascription of texts to the Prophet. But if you want to say that I want only the Quran, then the Quran says that you can only access the script and the text and the meaning if you are purified. And the purified are whatever group is called Ahlul Bayt. So we can say it is Hadithul Manzilah, but it is also an ayah of the Quran and the message of the Quran. To understand Ahlul Bayt, you have to understand the purpose for which the Quran was sent and for which they lived their lives, because they are one and the same. And this is in fact one of the crimes that has been committed in the reporting of the story of Islam. Generally, when you read the story of the Prophet's life, you will find that it is narrated as if it is one coincidence after another. Hijrah to Medina, all of a sudden circumstances were very unwelcoming in Mecca. Abu Talib and Khadija alayhim as-salam, they died. The oppression of Quraysh was increasing. The Prophet went to Ta'if. He did not have any luck converting people from the city of Ta'if except one person. And then he was searching for a place of refuge, and the people of Medina, they welcomed the Prophet. And so it sounds as if the Prophet did not have a plan, and he was searching and exploring different avenues, and then by fortune or the hand of God, there was a good result that came. Now, the Seerah does not deny that there was the hand of God, but it kind of is sometimes made to appear as if the hand of God was a deliberate mystery. The appointment of the Prophet as a messenger, he is in Ghar Hira, the cave of Hira, just worshipping and contemplating, and then some mysterious voice comes and the Prophet is not ready. He does not know who he is speaking to until Waraqat ibn Nawfal says this was Jibreel, the same source of revelation that came to previous prophets. And na'udhu billah, the Prophet didn't know should he come down the mountain to safety, or according to some narrations which are insulting, not only to the Prophet, but to the entire purpose for which Allah sent the Prophet. It is not just a demeaning of Tawheed, of Nubuwah, but also it is a demeaning of Tawheed itself and Islam itself, that the Prophet doubted and he didn't know who was speaking to him and how he is supposed to respond. If any of you own a convenience store and you appoint a manager, and that manager hires somebody to manage the night shift, and they hire a night shift manager, according to the logic that so many Muslims believe the Prophet appointed, that Allah appointed the final prophet and the greatest prophet in the history of humanity, then you would fire your manager and say you are not qualified to run a convenience store. You are not qualified to hire a night shift manager. That you bring somebody in and you say, I need you to manage inventory. What's inventory? You say, I need you to take care of the safety and the convenience of the store and make sure that we have sufficient staff and manage employees. What's going on? How do I do this? Who are you? What is this business that I am going to be managing with? I don't know how to operate any of the systems or the software or the human resources. What would you say about not the owner of a multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation, but just the manager of a single small store in one corner of the world? And you say that is how Allah appointed Khatamul Anbiya wal Mursaleen, the mercy to all of creation and humanity, where he didn't know how to operate the cash register, and he didn't know how to stock the shelves, na'udhu billah, and he didn't know how to manage or what he was even supposed to be responsible for. This is an insult, yes, to the memory of Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alih. But also to Islam itself and to Allah in His power and in His wisdom and in His knowledge for Him to appoint His Prophet in this way. So whether it be the hijrah, whether it be the bi'tha itself, whether it be the decisions that come, for example, in the battle about how to manage the affairs of the battle, it seems as if there are a series of coincidences in the Prophet. He does something and then he has to try something else. This is the way the seerah has been written and remembered. There is a reason why Allah does certain things. Just as an example, Suratul Bara'ah, the 9th chapter of the Quran, which was revealed in the 9th year of Hijrah. Somebody was sent to preach that surah to the Muslims in Mecca. And then, did the Prophet change his mind? Did Allah change his mind? If it was Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam who was supposed to preach that surah in the end, then why would Allah first send somebody else? Or why would the Prophet first send somebody else? Did the Prophet make his own decision and Allah said, wait a minute, I did not approve? Or did the Prophet speak in accordance with divine revelation and then Allah changed it? And if Allah changed it, then what message was Allah trying to give? Who was Allah trying to elevate? And if Allah was trying to elevate somebody, then was Allah trying to give a message? that, O people, you think that others are also worthy or capable of that elevation. But let me show you that no, they are not able to bear that burden to convey that message. As the Prophet said, Ya Ali la yuaddi anni illa ana aw ant. O Ali, only you or I can carry and convey the revelation of God and the message of the Quran. Salawatullah Muhammad wa alayhi. Same. Every incident, whether it be the Battle of Badr, we can find a similar kind of misconception. And I say misconception to be kind. Otherwise, there were deliberate attempts to paint the history of Islam as a series of coincidences. And there is a reason for it. In the Battle of Tabuk, why did the fitna come about why Imam Ali is to stay back in the city? The same reason. Because the Muslims, and this was not now in the first year of the Prophet's Hijrah, the second year of the Prophet's Hijrah. This is now when the Prophet's companions have spent years in his training. Makkah has been conquered. Islam has spread throughout the Arabian Peninsula, and still there are people who are saying that Rasulullah, he did this out of a desire for Imam Ali not to be in the army, and they made so many rumors, and the Prophet had to return and clarify that it was an honor for Imam Ali now, because it was not an army expedition that was meant for battle, but that was meant to preempt a threat on the frontiers. Amir al-Mu'mineen's expertise and wisdom and knowledge and the guidance that he brought, which was given to him by divine protection and guidance, that was needed in Medina more than it was needed on the battlefield. But the Muslims didn't say Allah has revealed it, and therefore we will submit and we will support. They said that the Prophet did this because of his own personal decision. This was a question not only on Imam Ali's usefulness to the army, but on the Prophet himself and his decision making. Why was this the case? Why is Islamic history presented in this manner? Because when people scheme and plan, they don't want others to think that they have been planning and they have been scheming. They always present through their media and their propaganda that this was just a fortunate coincidence. In countries where elections are engineered, those powers that want to control and maintain their influence, they hide their true influence. And they stuff the ballot boxes in order for people to think that their chosen candidate has won the election. They never say that we are the ones who are paying to buy votes. We are the ones who are falsifying the records. And the same thing happened in the time of the Prophet. Saqifa could not have taken place if the Muslims realized that the story of Islam was not just a series of coincidences and decisions made by the Prophet on his own authority, but rather it was a plan and it was a purpose that was revealed by God for humanity. And the job of people is not to come to Rasulullah and say, Ya Rasulullah, I have advice. to offer you, but rather to come and say that we have obedience. Tell us what is our obligation, and not ask us what is our opinion. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And for people who say, what about shura? The Quran says, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Yes, the Quran does say, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. But it doesn't mean what people think it means. The Quran says, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَظًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. O Messenger, it is a mercy of God that you are kind and forgiving to them. If you had been strict and harsh, they would have dispersed. This is praise of the Prophet, but it is also a very gentle rebuke and criticism of the people who claim to be believers. Imagine, just as a scenario, that I am in an airplane and I have a medical emergency. And they make an announcement, is there a physician on board? And a physician comes who was sleeping, maybe they have a headache, they're not in a very good mood themselves, and they are harsh with me. Now, in that situation, if I say, just let me die, this physician is strict or harsh. They don't have a good bedside manner. Maybe we can say that that physician should have been kinder, even if they were sleepy, even if they were also disturbed, but in reality, it is a criticism of my foolishness. Because they can save my life, and my life is at risk. I don't have anywhere else to turn. So now imagine the Quran is saying, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. These people are so foolish, Ya Rasulullah. They don't realize you are a physician that has the only cure to the poison that is in their bodies, the jahiliyyah that is in all of society. If you are a little strict with them, they'll say, check me out of the hospital, I want to go die. This is high praise for me to come and say, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. These are the people that you need to consult in order to have a good political system or governance system. These are the people who are experts. And if you still have doubt, then what does the Quran say? وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ فَاعْفُوا عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Mashura is coming in the context of, first of all, Ya Rasulullah, فَاعْفُوا عَنْهُمْ. Forgive them their stupidity and their ignorance. وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ. And then ask Allah to forgive them. وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. And Ya Rasulullah, ask them their opinion. Ask them their opinion, why? Because they are so foolish that they are not willing to offer their obedience when a message comes to them. إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ لِمَا يُحْيِيكُمْ. When the Prophet brings you something that is going to bring you life when you are dead. So Prophet of Allah, in your mercy, in your lean and kindness, forgive them. And ask Allah to forgive them. Their sin is so great that not only does the Prophet himself need to forgive, but he is the one who needs to ask Allah to forgive. Their istighfar is not going to be sufficient for themselves. Unless the Prophet says, Ya Allah, I ask you to forgive them. Then the Quran says, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Ask them their advice. This verse does not indicate that the Prophet needs the consultation or the advice of the believers, but rather it indicates that so foolish are the believers that unless the Prophet says, what is your view and what is your opinion, they will say, we are not going to submit and we are not going to be humble and we are not going to obey. It is a further kindness of the Prophet to the followers of Medina and later generations of Muslims, and not a need the Prophet has, and not that they are going to participate in making decisions. If Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If Muslims understood this, then Saqifa could never taken place. Because it is not you or I who say, but it is the second caliph himself who says. And the narration is in Sahihain. So we don't have to say, well, this book is da'if or this hadith is da'if. He says that كانت بيعة أبي بكر فلتة وقى الله شرها. The allegiance that was given in Saqifa was a falta. It was an ill-considered, precipitous, and it was a very, unplanned event. You would expect it to result in harm. وَقَى اللَّهُ شَرَّهَا. Allah has saved us from the harm, meaning there would have been evil that would come from it. فَمَنْ عَادَ لِمِثْلِهَا فَاقْتُلُوهُ. And if somebody tries to do what we did in Saqifa again, in my view, they are worthy of death. How does that even happen in the Muslim world? It happens if you think that the decisions of the Prophet also were falatat. They were ill-considered and precipitous actions. In reality, Saqifa was not a falta. It was a coup and a conspiracy, and you can see that in the events that took place in the time of the Prophet. So let us look at Seerah, not through that colored lens that is falsified, but let me say that I'm going to narrate the events of the Seerah, but not in the context of the history, but in a hypothetical government. If it were happening today. Just to show how absurd it is what many Muslims they think about the history of Islam. Let us say there is a head of state. And of course Rasulullah was not just a head of state. He was not a head of government. He was the focal point of the entire system of creation and divine mercy and guidance. But he was also the head of state and the head of government. So just imagine that there is a head of state, and just before his death, there is an attempted assassination. And that head of state says, I know who are the assassins. He says, I know who they are. But I'm not going to disclose their names. In our time, what would happen is maybe there would be a very confidential investigation. They would examine, and then they would reach their conclusions, and then they would classify the results to be released after 30 years. And sometimes, even if the assassination happened in the 1960s, hypothetically speaking, the 30-year declassification might not take place either. So now imagine an attempted assassination on the life of Rasulullah. Through a miracle, Allah shows the Prophet the faces of the people who are attempted to assassinate him. Who could be more worthy of immediate worldly punishment than somebody who has sought to assassinate the messenger of God? But the Prophet says that I am not going to publicly disclose their names. He told Ammar ibn Yasir and Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman. And then what happened is, people used to ask Hudayfa, tell me, is my name among that list or not? And of course, we didn't have an FBI, we didn't have a special investigative committee. What we had in Medina is that Hudayfa, he used to attend certain people's janazah and he used to not attend certain people's janazah. This is how you classify information in the time of the Prophet. It is classified. and it is not disclosed publicly. Otherwise, by all rights, you would expect that the names of those criminals should be announced and they should be punished for their crime. Yet, it is given to Hudayfa a special investigative committee. It is classified for 30 years because really some of them, they did not die for 30 years. And then people would see, is Hudayfa coming in the janazah? And he's praying for forgiveness for this person? Now I realize they're innocent. And those who are alive, some of them, that cloud of suspicion remained. And then if Hudayfa ignored their janazah, you would say that this person is guilty. Now, when do you put that kind of system? If it was a lone assassin with no political connections and no ability to cause fitna, it was just some mafia in Dallas, hypothetically speaking, right? No influence, no connection anywhere, then how long do you need to classify the records? What prevents you from disclosing and having a public trial? So you can see what the circumstances were in the time of the Prophet. There is a scholar who makes a very interesting point. It's relevant, so I will quote it. He says that the Prophet is rahmatun lil alameen. But those who say that all of the companions are adil and just, it is as if they think the Prophet is the opposite. Why? Because so long as the Prophet is alive, the Quran says that there are munafiqeen among your companions and you don't know who they are, Allah knows them. But as soon as the Prophet dies, now all of a sudden you say they are all just. So it is as if the life of the Prophet and the presence of the Prophet is what is causing munafiqeen to exist. In the time of the Prophet, there are munafiqeen. Does anybody deny it? In the first year of Hijrah, in the second year of Hijrah, even in the 9th and the 10th year of Hijrah, and until the day he died, were there munafiqeen? Nobody denies it. In fact, there were even munafiqeen in the days of the beginning of the Prophet's mission in Mecca. But certainly, throughout the life of the Prophet, the Quran addresses the prevalence and the harms of the munafiqeen with even greater urgency than it deals with the harms and the risks presented by the unbelievers and the polytheists, the kuffar and the mushrikeen. If somebody dies before the death of the Prophet, then we will say in that time some companions were sincere and some were munafiqeen. The Prophet dies, and if somebody dies after that, 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, then we will say, As-sahaba kulluhum udul, all of the companions are just. So what was preventing them from being just during the lifetime of the Prophet? Was Rasulullah rahmatun lil alameen, or was he the obstacle preventing people from being just? If everybody who saw him and claimed to be a Muslim with their tongue suddenly became just and upright only because the Prophet died. Na'udhu billah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And the irony is that people say, you followers of Ahlul Bayt, if you say that some of the companions were hypocrites, then you are not honoring the Prophet. Look at the irony. Exactly that view which is meant to uphold the dignity and the honor of the Prophet is claimed and treated as if it is undermining the Prophet. That he spent 3 years of his life sacrificing, teaching, spreading Islam, and now you say that some of his companions were hypocrites? We want to honor the Prophet, and so we will say that there were no hypocrites. All of them were adil, all of them were upright, all of them were just. We do this to honor the Prophet, and when you say that some of them were upright, and some of them were not, then you are insulting the Prophet. when in the reality it is the opposite. If you say that all of them became upright upon the death of the Prophet, then you are insulting the Prophet by saying he was what was preventing them from being mu'min. Na'udhu billah, if that was the only thing that was preventing them, then maybe, na'udhu billah, the Prophet should have died sooner. So that all of those munafiqeen could be magically converted into mu'mineen. And all of those who were weak in iman, all of a sudden they could become adil. In the time of the Prophet, it was companions. In ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu. It was a companion who was a fasiq and deliberately lied. And the Quran says, when a fasiq, meaning a sinful person, comes to you with news, then check. Because they might lead you deliberately astray and into warfare. So in the time of the Prophet, a narration that comes from a Sahabi could be true, or it could not just be accidentally mistaken, but it could be deliberately false. Because the Quran says, إِن جَاءَكُمْ فَاسِقٌ بِنَبَإٍ. Was it a mushrik? Was it a kafir? Was it somebody who said, La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah? So, as long as the Prophet is alive, you have to check. What is this Sahabi saying? And are they pious or are they sinful? The Prophet dies, and all of a sudden, this verse is abrogated, at least with respect to the companions. Now there is no fasiq. So what was keeping them fasiq? Rasulullah was keeping them fasiq? That same person, now that the Prophet has died, you say that do the analysis of the chain of transmission, but if it comes to a prophet, prophetic companion, whether that companion be Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari or whether that companion be Abu Huraira, you don't need to do any research. And what was the obstacle? Why was that verse of Quran revealed? And this is a very important point for us to remember if we want to understand why Muslims fell for the treachery of Saqifa. Because that's how they viewed the entire history of the Prophet. They did not understand it. And this brings you to understand the wisdom of Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra salamullahi alayha. Because we are making this introduction in order for us to better understand the life of Sayyidah Fatima. Why in khutbah fadakiyya? Why does she begin with affirming the reality of Tawheed? You know, sometimes when people, they release a documentary or a movie, they have a teaser. So khutbah of fadak, it is almost as if Sayyidah Fatima, she is releasing a teaser for Nahj al-Balagha. What the beauty of Nahj al-Balagha gives you in so many sermons, the khutbah of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, it gives you in one sermon as a summary. And of course it comes... And of course it is from that same spring of divine guidance and prophetic guidance that both Amirul Mu'mineen spoke and Sayyidah Fatima Zahra spoke. But she first affirmed the true understanding of Tawheed. Then she explained the revelation of the message of the Prophet and how the Prophet was chosen before he was sent, and he was not taken by surprise, but he was ready. And then Sayyidah Fatima says that after the Prophet had completed his entire mission, ثُمَّ قَبَضَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ قَبْضَ رَأْفَةٍ وَاخْتِيَارٍ وَرَغْبَةٍ وَإِيثَارٍ. Allah took the Prophet into his company. قَبْضَ رَأْفَةٍ وَاخْتِيَارٍ. It was a gentle ra'fat, a gentle and a chosen death. not a sudden death. قبض رأفة واختيار ورغبة وإيثار. Raghba means that you are seeking, the Prophet desired the life of the hereafter over the life of this world. Ithar means when you prefer somebody over yourself, altruism. In these 4 words, Ra'fa, Ikhtiyar, Raghba, Ithar, Sayyida Fatima is demolishing the foundation of Saqifa. Just in 4 words. Ra'fa, Ikhtiyar, Raghba, Ithar. She is saying, my father was not taken by death, but the angel of death asks permission before entering into my home. The Prophet does not have to be submitting to the command of the angel of death, but the angel of death is the one who has to submit to the command of the Prophet. So why did you need to go and have that falta? Why did you need to have that ill-considered action? If the Prophet had died suddenly, then you would say, well, what are we going to do in this emergency? But if the Prophet had finished his mission, as the Quran says, if even the angel of death does not come into the house of the Prophet, let alone take the soul of the Prophet without his permission, then if the Prophet needed to make arrangements, he made those arrangements. If he needed to convey a message, he conveyed a message. There was no need for any state of emergency. There was no need for any ill-considered actions. There was no need to leave the Prophet's body unburied and say that we are concerned about the safety and the stability of the Muslim world. That would have been possible if the Prophet died a sudden death. But then how can there be anything sudden when Allah is the creator of heaven and earth, and He is the one who is guiding the affairs of the Prophet and guiding the affairs of Islam? In Al-Khutbah Al-Fadakiyya, Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra is not just establishing her right to Fadak or Imam Ali's right to Imamat, but she is establishing the true memory of the entire story of Islam and purpose of Islam and the seerah of Rasulullah and the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. فقبضه الله إليه قبض رأفة واختيار ورغبة وإيثار. Everything that happened, it was according to a divine plan. If you had followed the command of Allah, then there was no Roman attack that was going to come. There was going to be no harm that would come to the Muslims. Allah had not neglected His religion. The Prophet had not neglected his duty. Imam Ali and Ahlul Bayt, they did not neglect their duty. It was the Muslims who thought that their advice and input was needed to save Islam, who disobeyed the command of Allah and the Prophet and abandoned Imam Ali and Sayyida Fatima, that caused the instability and the harm in the Muslim world that remains until the present day. And that is the tragedy of Islam. We mentioned the sadness of Sayyida Fatima at the death of her mother and her grief at the death of her father, the Messenger of God. But I don't think as a young girl, when Sayyida Fatima, she was by the bedside of her mother Khadija as she breathed her last, and she felt the loneliness of Ahlul Bayt in a city of shirk that she ever imagined. Only a few years later, when the time would come for her father to breathe his last, that Ahlul Bayt would be just as alone and just as abandoned as Khadija was. Makkah was a city where Khadija was surrounded by mushrikeen, and Medina is a city where Ahlul Bayt were surrounded by Muslims who recited the adhan and considered themselves followers of the Prophet. But when the Prophet breathed his last, Sayyidah Fatima was grieving in the home. Amir al-Mu'mineen had tears streaming down his face. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, Zainab and Kulthum, they did not know whether it was night or day when the light of their life had been extinguished with the death of the Prophet. But that was the darkest day for Ahlul Bayt, because the Ummah had abandoned them. Rasulullah knew what a terrible test it would be for his daughter. So in his final moments, he gave her one word of consolation. It is said that in his final moments, Rasulullah called his daughter Fatima towards himself. He said that, "Oh, my daughter Fatima," and he said it in her ear so that nobody else could know what was said. Only later, after the death of the Prophet, people asked Sayyidah Fatima, "What did your father say to you?" And that is when she informed them. He said to her that, "Oh, my daughter Fatima, very soon I will depart this world to my eternal abode." What people saw was that when the Prophet whispered those words in the ear, they did not know what he said, that Sayyidah Fatima broke down in tears. And then the Prophet could not bear to see his daughter cry. He called her immediately and he hugged her and he whispered something else in her ears, and she began to smile. Then when people asked her before he died, "What was it that your father said?" she said, "He told me that very soon he will die. He knew when his death was coming and he had prepared for it. If only the Ummah would listen." Then they said, "But why is it that so soon after you heard that tragic news that you began to smile? For never have we seen somebody with so much grief who smiled after their grief." She said that, "My father told me that, oh, my daughter Fatima, for the first time in your life, you will be separated from me. But it will not be a long separation. Oh, Fatima, you will be the first of my family to rejoin me in heaven." And when I knew that the Prophet would not be separated from me for a while, it gave me happiness. Such was the love and the connection between Fatima Zahra and her father, that to know that she would be reunited was her only consolation. But Fatima Zahra was a mother with young children. Although she was consoled that she would be united with the Prophet, she knew that now her children, they would bear two losses. They would bear the loss of Rasulullah, and they would bear the loss of their mother. Those final few weeks, although Sayyidah Fatima had been abandoned by the Muslims, although she had been attacked and her body was weak, narrations tell us that she gave special attention to her children, even more than before. She kept them by her side. She would feed them with her own hands. She would prepare them in the morning for the day, and she would keep them by her when she did dua and she did ibadah, because she wanted her children to know how much she loved her, and she wanted them to have those final memories, until it is said that when the time of her own death approached, She said that, oh my children, go out to the masjid, go out of the home, come back after a while. She didn't want them to be there in that moment when her life left this worldly abode for eternity. When Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein came back, they said, oh Ayman, where is our mother? How could anyone respond to those young children wanting to see their mother? She pointed to the room where Sayyidah Fatima had died as she did her ibadah. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, they ran into the room and hugged their mother, and they saw that she had left this world and now she was the martyr. She had been reunited with Rasulullah in the hereafter. And if Sayyidah Fatima could speak from the heavens, she would say, oh my young children, I am waiting for you. It does not matter if it will be years or many decades, but your mother will always be by your side. Even if it be, oh Hassan, when you are poisoned, even if it be, oh Hussein, when you are surrounded by your enemy in Karbala, your mother will always be with you. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. Atul Hussein.
Hussein, Hussein. Hussein, Hussein. Hussein, Hussein. Hussein, Hussein. Hussein, Hussein. Hussein, Hussein. Hussein, Hussein. Hussein, Hussein.
Hussein, Hussein.
Hussein, Hussein.
Hussein, Hussein.
Hussein, Hussein.
Hussein, Hussein.
Hussein, Hussein.
Hussein, Hussein.
Hussein, Hussein. Al-Aman, 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 Al-Aman. Between the door and the wall, between the door and the wall, they had struck Zahra down. Al-Aman, 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 Al-Aman. After Rasulullah passed, things had changed so quickly. After Rasulullah passed, things had changed so quickly. His family was attacked. His family was attacked. His house they would surround. Al-Aman, 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 Al-Aman. How can so-called companions display such cruelty? How can so-called companions display such cruelty? To light ablaze the door of the, to light ablaze the door of the holiest house in town. Al-Aman, 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 Al-Aman. One hand holding her stomach, one hand holding her chest, one hand holding her stomach, one hand holding her chest. Fatima's ribs were broken, Fatima's ribs were broken, Hassan would narrate his greatest tragedy. Imam Hassan would narrate his greatest tragedy. Seeing his mother struck so hard, seeing his mother struck so hard, that she fell to the ground. Al-Aman, 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 Al-Aman. Bibi Zahra would cry out, "Oh my grandson Mahdi." Bibi Zahra would cry out, "Oh my grandson Mahdi, if only you had been here, if only you had been here, I would be safe and sound." Al-Aman, 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 Al-Aman. Between the door and the wall, between the door and the wall, they had struck Zahra down. Al-Aman, 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 Al-Aman. Hussein, Hussein.
زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا، کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا. زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا، کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا. زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا، کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا. زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا، کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا. مخدوم آئے دو عالم کو، کیوں گھر میں بھی رونے نہ دیا. زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا، کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا. زہرا کو ظالموں لوٹا، کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا. زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا، کیوں بد نبی. مخدوم آئے دو عالم کو، کیوں گھر میں بھی رونے نہ دیا. زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا، کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا. زہرا کو ظالموں لوٹا، کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا. زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا، کیوں بد. جس پاک معظمہ بی بی کی تعظیم محمد کرتے تھے، دربار بلایا امت نے، کلمہ بھی نبی کا پڑھتے تھے. بابا کی وراثت سے ناحق اس زہرا کو محروم کیا. زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا، کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا. زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا، کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا. زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا کیوں بد حق چھین لیا جب زہرا کا پھر بھی نہ چین سے رہنے دیا حیدر کے گلے میں ڈالی رسیں نہیں ظالموں کو کچھ آئی گیا گھر داخل ہو کے امت نے کیوں زخم کیا پہلو اس کا زہرا کو ظالموں نے کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا کیوں بد نبی بے جرم خطا زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا کیوں بد تحریر رسول کی نہ مانی حق مانگنے کو دربار گئی محسن بھی عقیل شہید کیا رہی زندہ جب تک روتی رہی یہ اجر رسالت امت سے ہے بعد نبی زہرا کو ملا زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا کیوں بعد نبی بے جرم خطا زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا کیوں بعد نبی بے جرم خطا زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا کیوں بعد نبی بے جرم جس در کی سلامی کی خاطر دن رات ملائک سب آتے اس در کی عظمت کیا ہوگی جہاں پاک نبی خود رک جاتے اس در اقدس کو آگ لگا دیا ظالموں نے زہرا پہ گرا زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا کیوں بعد نبی بے جرم خطا زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا کیوں بعد نبی بے جرم خطا مخدوم آئے دو عالم کو کیوں گھر میں بھی رونے نہ دیا زہرا کو ظالموں نے لوٹا کیوں بعد نبی بے جرم خطا
ہائے غم میں تیرے جاتی رہی ہائے غم میں تیرے جاتی رہی بینائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہائے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہائے زہرا تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہائے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے دربار میں ظالم کے گئی بنت پیمبر کیا بات تھا کچھ کر نہ سکا پاک ہے خیبر ہائے ہنستے رہے غربت پہ تماشائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہائے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی پیغام ولایت لیے گھر گھر گئی زہرا شوہر کے لیے ڈھال تھی جب تک رہی زندہ ہائے دنیا کو بتاتی رہی سچائی علی کی تیری تنہائی زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی در جلتا ہوا فاطمہ زہرا پہ گرایا در جلتا ہوا فاطمہ زہرا پہ گرایا محسن شہادت کا سبب بن گئی دنیا ہائے تصویر مکمل نہیں ہو پائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہائے زہرا کہتے تھے علی زہرا سے کیا حال ہے بی بی اب ہم کو سلام کے بھی کرتا نہیں کوئی ہائے ہے باد نبی کیسی پذیرائی علی کی تیری تنہائی تنہائی علی کی ہائے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی زہرا کی جدائی کو لگائے ہوئے دل سے 25 برس مولا نے چپ چاپ گزارے ہائے ایک حجرے میں کل دنیا سمٹ آئی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہائے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہائے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی
حسین 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 اللہم صلی علی